On Monday, 68 million Filipinos went to the polls to decide who should replace their current president, Rodrigo Duterte, for the next 6 years. Even to an outsider, this was a pretty exciting election. The candidates included former 8th-division world boxing champion Manny Pacquiao, the son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos, and nearly Duterte's own daughter, Sara. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the race, the results, and what this all might mean for Filipino politics going forward. So before we get into the results, a bit on the race itself. In accordance with the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines, a general election is held every 6 years. Presidents are limited to 1 term, while vice presidents are limited to 2. At each general election, a whole load of positions are up for grabs. As well as the presidency and the vice presidency, there are also 12 Senate seats, 316 House of Representatives seats, and about 18,000 local positions available. President and vice president are elected by first past the post, which just means whoever gets the most votes in the first round wins. Anyway, last time around in 2016, the presidential election was won by Rodrigo Duterte, a straight-talking strongman who used to be Davao City Mayor. Duterte was elected on a platform promising to crack down on the illegal drug trade and invest in Filipino infrastructure as part of his Build, Build, Build program. Duterte's aggressive anti-drug policies have come under some criticism from international organisations. In September of last year, the International Criminal Court opened an investigation into his so-called war on drugs, which, according to the ICC, has killed somewhere between 12 and 30,000 people, a majority of which were probably extrajudicial killings encouraged by the state. Nonetheless, Duterte's crackdown has undeniably led to a reduction in crime. According to official data, crime has dropped by an astonishing 74% in the 5 years since Duterte took charge. Duterte's infrastructure investment have also paid off. In the 3 months before COVID, the economy grew more than 6% each year. All this has meant that Duterte has enjoyed impressively high approval ratings. His approval ratings have remained above 70% for almost all of his tenure, and his average approval rating is higher than any Filipino president before him. This is why many people thought that his daughter, Sara, would run for president to replace her father, who isn't allowed a second term. Sara could run as her father's obvious successor and ride his popularity. Duterte and his daughter actually did a similar thing in Davao, when he was mayor before handing over to his daughter. For most of the last year, Sara was actually ahead in preliminary polling, and was the bookies' favourite for the president. However, in September, Sara announced that she wouldn't be running for president, and would instead be running for vice president. That left Ferdinand Marcos Jr., commonly known as Bongbong Marcos, and the son of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. as the frontrunner. For those of you who don't know, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. was a dictator who ruled the Philippines from 1965 to 1986. Marcos Sr. was, to put it lightly, a controversial figure. He embezzled an estimated $10 billion from the state coffers, imposed martial law for 9 years to silence political opponents and critical media, and only left office in 1986 after massive street protests and the loss of support from the police and army. Bongbong and Duterte have encouraged in a propaganda campaign to rehabilitate the Marcos family name in Filipino politics. According to their revisionist history, Marcos Sr.'s reign marked a golden era of political stability and economic prosperity. The two families have formed a loose political alliance. In 2018, Bongbong became a senator as a member of Sara's new Faction for Change party. And this year, the two are running on a joint ticket called Uniteam, which has been endorsed by Rodrigo Duterte's PDP Laban party. Apart from dynastic continuity, it's hard to know what Ferdinand Marcos really stands for. His campaign talks a lot about unity, but they're very light on detail, and in his 30 years in public life, during which he's had stints as a congressperson, senator and governor, he's never really taken a strong stance on policy. Marcos has shunned TV debates and avoided interviews with media outlets his camp considered unfriendly. And last month, the Filipino tax agency ruled that he owed 203 billion pesos, which comes to about $3.9 billion worth of taxes due on the estate of his late father. His main opponent in the race is Leni Robredo, a human rights lawyer who is also the current vice president. Robredo has been a vocal critic of Duterte Sr.'s war on drugs and is running on essentially an anti-corruption campaign promising to end the Philippines' reliance on unscrupulous political dynasties. This is a particular problem in the Philippines. Like Bongbong, Rodrigo Duterte's two predecessors were also sons of former presidents. Nonetheless, despite improving numbers and impressive campaign rallies, Rodrigo struggled to match Marcos's poll ratings, which never really dropped below 50%. Going into the election on Monday, polls were giving Marcos something like a 30-point lead over Robredo, with other candidates polling on less than 10%. Similarly, Sara Duterte has maintained a healthy lead over other vice presidential candidates and went into the election enjoying a 40% lead over second-placed Kiko, Rodrigo's vice presidential candidate. As the polls predicted, Marcos and Duterte won their respective races by quite some distance. We should say here that we're writing this video on Monday evening, Philippines time, so only about 50% of the votes have been counted, but the outcome is already pretty clear. In the presidential race, Marcos is in first place with 60% of the vote, Robredo is in second place with 28% of the vote, and former 8-division world boxing champion Manny Pacquiao, who ran a socially conservative campaign not dissimilar to Duterte's in 2016, in third with about 5% of the vote. Robredo won most of the regions in the centre and west of the Philippines, while Marcos won in the north and the south. Similarly, Sara Duterte is currently well ahead in the vice presidential race, with 60% of the vote. Kiko is in second place with 18%, and Tito Soto, a former actor and TV host, is in third with about 17% of the vote. So what does Marcos's victory mean for the Philippines? Well, as we mentioned earlier, he's not particularly detail-oriented, so it's hard to know for sure, but given his close links to the Duterte family and Duterte's own popularity, you can probably expect some degree of continuity.
It's easy to find everything around the world a little overwhelming right now, but there is one small thing you can do to help. You can donate money to causes that you care about without spending a penny. Yep, really. That's because Tab for a Cause is the sponsor of today's video, and they allow you to donate money just by using your browser. They support charities like Save the Children, who have been working to provide life-saving interventions in Ukraine since 2014, working to provide the most basic needs to vulnerable families, as well as providing psychological support and increasing awareness of the hazards of war. So, what can you do to help? Well, if you head to tabforacause.org/Ukraine, you can add an extension to your browser which raises money to help the people of Ukraine every time you open a new tab. Yeah, it really is that simple, and you can even track the impact you've made personally. And you don't need to worry, they're not doing anything scary, they're just putting a couple of ads in the corner of your new tab page, and the money raised from advertisers goes straight towards the cause. Smart, right? Well, as I said, you can easily support the people of Ukraine and help contribute to the $1.3 million raised so far by heading to tabforacause.org/Ukraine. Thanks for your support.